Thanks so much. Pleasure to be with you, and thank you all for taking a couple of minutes out of your day to listen to me talk a little bit here about HYCU and what we can do for your hybrid and multi-cloud environment. My name is Alan Holmes. I've been a sales engineer here at HYCU now for just over 2 years. I come from a couple decades worth of IT, sysadmin, network engineering type roles for various organizations before coming over here to HYCU. And today we are going to chat about how to achieve data freedom with simple, reliable data backup and migration. So, what does that mean? Well, before we get into that too deeply, what I wanted to discuss first or introduce you to first was our HYCU Protege, which is basically a single platform that allows you to see, manage, and protect all of the data that you have in the enterprise across the different environments that you're utilizing, providing you things like backup and recovery services, but also being able to handle that hybrid and multi-cloud environment and meeting compliance with things like cybersecurity insurance requirements and things like that for protection from ransomware and disaster recovery. And then also providing you with data migration and mobility capabilities. So as we dive into that, let's start here with the challenges that are involved in protecting data in a hybrid cloud environment. Now, maybe define some terms first. Hybrid cloud, what do we mean by that? Essentially, most enterprise businesses that we're coming in contact with today, they maintain a mix of on-premise, of public cloud, maybe private cloud, SaaS type environments, things like that. And their data is kind of spread around all over the place. And that's kind of what we are referring to as hybrid cloud. And with that in mind, that introduces a lot of complexity with less visibility. What do we mean by that? Essentially, mixing those private and public cloud environments, it creates points of failure because there are so many hands in the pot. Also, because different teams are in charge of each of those environments, it is hard to get that visibility into it from a central location. One team managing one thing, it's hard for an IT group to be able to get insight into that, to apply things like enterprise-wide security policies or other regulatory type compliance tools. And it really is that limited visibility is really one of the top threats that we've seen to cloud computing. And kind of near and dear to my heart is, from an IT perspective, is just less control than you had before. IT and security teams, we just don't have any oversight over some of those business critical environments because of cloud. And I can't tell you how many times we would have in my various roles, a DevOps team or something spin up an environment that was built on some platform that was perfect for the project they were working on, but it was something that we just didn't have any insight into, an integration. And so we were not able to monitor it from a data flow standpoint, ransomware protection, just hard to see who had their hands in the pot there. Also, there is a huge misunderstanding of the shared responsibility model. Basically, and we're going to touch on this here in just a second, people think that their data is more recoverable and more secure in the cloud just by virtue of the fact that it's there. And that's not necessarily true. And with those two truths, I guess you could say, those two categories, it's amongst a landscape where risks and threats are just greater than they ever have been. A year ago, I remember telling people that based on statistics analysis and so forth, that we were estimating ransomware attacks were happening every 16 seconds. Well, now 12 months later, it's every 11 seconds. And with the complexity of these environments and the fact that there are so many hands kind of in the pot, so to speak, it really does introduce the possibility of a more human error, either from a mistake kind of standpoint, or we've even seen situations where people have decided to essentially digitally flip over the tables on their way out the door, and kind of sabotage part of an environment. So it's just unfortunately one of the realities that are out there because of this. So with those things in mind, let's talk here about common mistakes that we've seen in approach to data protection in a hybrid cloud environment. Number one, we talked about this already a little bit. I already have a backup. Basically, by virtue of the fact that my cloud, the cloud is where my data resides, it is more secure and more recoverable. Well, that's not true. If you read the terms and services of pretty much any public and private cloud or SaaS vendor, they are usually pretty explicit that they're providing you with the platform, they're providing you with the infrastructure, or basically the environment for your data, but the data is yours and it's your responsibility to protect it and maintain it. The other thing is, well, I have snapshots that I can use in my cloud VMs. What do I need HYCU for? I've got snapshots. Well, I'm a huge proponent of snapshots are not backups. I've said that since early days of virtualization. So they're not backups. It's all or nothing kind of a thing. But they can also, in the cloud environment, they can be very expensive, and you don't get that granularity. It was just kind of what I meant with all or nothing. It's restore the whole VM or nothing, essentially. The last thing we've seen is that people take their on-premise data protection solution for their data center and bolt on a cloud-compatible kind of add-on to their solution. And what we've run into there, and this is what I want to discuss next in mistake number 2, but basically legacy vendors are kind of trying to bolt on functionality to their legacy products and call it cloud, and it's really not. And that's where mistake number 2 comes in, kind of accepting that on-premise mindset versus what HYCU is providing, which is a data protection as a service that's native to the cloud. We have zero deployment, no maintenance, and very minimal configuration. Basically, it is a true backup as a service solution that's hosted within the cloud platform, but not necessarily within your subscription or your tenant. And that's where another HYCU advantage comes in. And then kind of tying into that a little bit, not utilizing the power of the platform. Mistake number 3, versus what HYCU is doing, being public cloud native. And what we mean by that is eliminating infrastructure. We don't have virtual appliances that we're deploying. And this is that kind of add-on functionality that I was describing, where backup vendors are essentially building their on-premise environment in a cloud environment and calling it cloud. And it's just not. HYCU doesn't have any of that need. It's nothing that gets deployed in your environment, and it scales to your environment, whether you've got 100 VMs or 1,000. We also are aware of all of the basically IDP resource groups, the other things that you do to segment your environment so that your production environment, your DevOps teams, things like that aren't interacting necessarily with the data in each. We're aware of that, and you can even extend that segmentation into HYCU, all with a single pane of glass for on-premise or cloud workloads. Which brings us to mistake number 4, and that's relying on snapshot management tools. Kind of touched on this before. Snapshots, I believe, are not backups. HYCU is, on the other hand, a comprehensive backup solution where we are essentially taking the data, writing it out to storage in an incremental forever, deduplicated, however, we've got a couple of options there. But the other thing is we are automatically tiering it. So you're setting retention policies, saying I want to keep my data for 15 days, or I want to keep it for 30 days, 90 days, 6 years, whatever you want. We are putting it in the correct tier based on the retention policy so that you aren't putting short-term data in archive storage where you're going to incur lots of early deletion fees and things like that. And similarly, we're not storing long-term data in a hot tier. On top of that, we're aware of the resource groups and subscriptions so that you can essentially have your storage in one resource group while your workloads are in a completely different one. And that way, people who are logged into the management consoles in Azure can see what they need from a production or a DevOps standpoint, but they don't see or have access to the backup data that we've written. And neither does any kind of ransomware that may get into any of those environments. We're completely separate. And the last thing, the big thing that really, I think, differentiates from snapshot management tools is that we do have that granularity. It's not an all or nothing restore to this snapshot point in time. We can get down into files, folders, applications, and things like that. Mistake number 5, struggling with operational efficiency, right? One of the reasons you got to the cloud was that you didn't have to manage all that infrastructure and hardware. HYCU, on the other hand, we've extended that simplicity of operation into your backup solution, which most backup vendors don't. They take the same on-premise kind of complexity of multiple virtual appliances or physical servers, even different applications, different reporting servers, all the different agents you have to install on each of the machines. We've streamlined that and taken the same kind of operational efficiency and extended into your backup solution. Very intuitive user interface. You'll be an expert in 30 minutes. It's an agent-free solution. There's nothing to install on your virtual machines, nothing that actually deploys in your cloud environment at all. And on top of that, We have the capability to automatically discover new workloads. So if you have a team that spins up a group of 15 VMs for a particular project, HYCU is going to find those automatically. And you can even define rules within HYCU that tells us what to do with those VMs when we discover them based on where they originated. And lastly, number 6, not planning for the future. What does that mean? Well, basically, nobody's environment is static, right? Your data is going to move. Your subscription services that you've got in cloud, the different features you're using are gonna change, and that's where HYCU affords you some cross-cloud mobility, allowing you to essentially take those dev test workloads and promote them through things like cloning and disk and container migration across the different environments, across the different resource groups, so that you can promote that code more quickly. Also, cross-regional disaster recovery. We provide a simple cross-region recovery capability so that if you have something happen in whatever region your workloads are running, you can recover them in a different region from backups written to that storage. Or if you just want to get a second copy of those workloads in a geographically closer location to a particular client or customer base or something like that, we can facilitate that as well. And also, cloud is a cost-efficient backup solution, or a target solution for backups of on-premise devices. So taking your on-premise virtual machines and writing copies of those backups to cloud. And with HYCU, we actually have a somewhat unique ability of taking those backups that have been written to cloud and instantiating native Azure workloads. So taking a VM that's been backed up from your data center, writing copies of the backups to Azure Blob, and then from that Azure Blob, HYCU can instantiate VMs from that backup image, which is a good migration or even disaster recovery type of option. Okay, so I want to take a look real briefly here in terms of what the architectural overview looks like. And basically, you start with Azure, you subscribe to the marketplace, to the HYCU Backup as a Service product. We integrate then, of course, with Azure AD. We see all the resource groups that are associated with a particular subscription. And we can then break those down. We can manage them within HYCU as a single entity, or if you have those resource groups segmented for a particular reason, and maybe different teams are responsible for the data protection strategies within those resource groups, HYCU can also provide the ability to create protection sets where you group these resource groups together so that one team can manage the data protection strategy for one group of machines while somebody else is managing for the others. And then we simply write that data out to Azure Blob, and like we talked about before, it is automatically tiered to the correct tier for the data type that's there and for how long it will be retained. And then, as I said, the on-premise environment can also be backed up and written to that blob storage so that you can have it available as an offsite recovery option, or like we talked about, being able to instantiate VMs from that data. Also not pictured on this slide is our ability to protect M365 products as well. So, all your typical mailbox, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, the whole smash there. All right, so to kind of sum up what we've already talked about, what does HYCU Protege for Azure deliver? It is a next-gen backup solution that is natively written, purpose-built for the cloud. We've extended that operational efficiency kind of methodology and philosophy to your backup and data protection, and have provided you with the ability to move that data between environments. And again, it is a purpose-built solution for the cloud. We have the ability to provide those air-gapped backups by virtue of writing to storage that's in different resource groups than your DevOps teams or your production management teams, your sysadmins use. And it is 100% agentless that scales with the environment. And we do have that ability to clone resources, to move them between regions in a case of a DR or a migration need. Okay, so I just want to finish off here with a particular customer example, someone that we helped very recently, actually, who was using Azure Backup, basically maintaining snapshots as their backup solution. And we've kind of simplified the numbers a bit, but the percentages are all still the same. And here's what it amounts to. This customer was using about $10,000 per year of Azure Blob storage to maintain their snapshots to recover from. With HYCU, we were able to cut that usage in half by virtue of, first of all, tiering to the correct storage, so we aren't putting snapshots and data alongside the VMs. And on top of that, being able to do full backups with incremental changes and block level changes and incremental forever type backup architectures, cutting that storage use in half. So even with our licensing costs, we still saved them 25% over 1 year. And on top of that, we provided them with the ability to have that granular recovery, something that they were not having with Azure Snapshots, that all or nothing. We were able to get them the ability to restore individual files and applications and things. So just one example. There are many like it, but that's all I had today. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me for a few minutes here. If you have questions, if you're interested in hearing more about this, if you want to get someone to reach out to you and give you a more detailed, in-depth, kind of deep dive demo of the solution, actually get your eyes on the interface, we're happy to do that. You can scan this QR code or go to the URL right there, and someone will reach out to you, and we'll be happy to chat with you and get you whatever information you need. So again, thank you very much, and I'm going to send it back to you all. Thanks.